Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Awakening Heart, Community of Mindful Living here at Dallas Meditation Center. Today is Sunday, July the 12th. Really glad you could join us tonight, and really toasty and warm day here in Dallas, so I hope you're staying cool. We're really glad to see you, and for those of you who are new, and this is your first time finding us on YouTube, welcome. And we're intentionally beginner friendly, so it will be really easy for you to just follow along. We'll have a guided meditation and a talk. And those of you who would like to come along with us afterwards, we will have sharing and discussion on Zoom, and I will post that link in the chat window. And I welcome you, if you would, check in on the chat window on YouTube and say hello so we can see that you're there. It's really great to have a little bit of feedback knowing that you're there on the other side. And I'll post that link there here in a little bit. And just know sometimes it hasn't happened for a few weeks that YouTube bumped us off. If that happens, just know you can go back to our live YouTube channel at dallasmeditationcenter.com/YouTube, and we'll try to get another live feed set up. And if not, if all that fails, we'll join us over on Zoom. And that hasn't happened for a few weeks. So anyway, so find that comfortable position. And let's begin. We will hear 3 sounds of the bell to get us started.
Oh, it's my turn. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming in to join us tonight. I'm happy that you were able to do that. And we may ask Cornell in a minute to check in who else is here. But we like to begin our time together with an affirmation. And so this is the Awakening Heart opening affirmation. Noble community, we gather here now to honor the way of peace and nonviolence, the way of wisdom and compassion, the way of joy and beauty. In solidarity with one another, with all humanity, and with all life on earth. Friends on the path, we gather here now to deepen our solidity like a mountain and to renew our freshness like a flower. Through mindful sitting and walking, mindful singing and breathing, and mindful speaking and listening. Family of awakening, we gather here now to celebrate the one infinite light that shines through many religions and many cultures, to cultivate the wisdom of our many teachers, both ancestral and contemporary, and to affirm the capacity within ourselves and all persons of every race, gender, orientation, and tradition to realize full and complete enlightenment. So this evening, in a little bit, we'll do our guided meditation, and then we'll hear from Myles Sandoval. Myles is joining us from Illinois, I think close to Chicago, and I'm so happy that we get to see her again. It's been probably a month since we saw you in person on this platform, on this, for this Sangha. But I know you've been really active with the Zen to Go. So, Cornell, do you want to say if anybody else has checked in?
Sure. Thanks everyone for checking in. Do continue to check in. We have Julie says greetings and happy for the sit. Heather is here, says, hi, everyone. Catherine, glad to be here. James, hello. Nick and Evita, grateful for the 250-year-old tree they found today. Mike says, hello, I'm glad to be here. Carolyn, hello. Billy says, hi. Paula, hi, everyone. Happy to be here with everyone today. And Louise says, grateful to be here. So really happy to see all of you as well. Thank you for joining us today.
So I do hope that all of you will join us on Zoom after this part of the program so that we can see you, see your face, see your smiles, and have a real talk with one another. I spent a couple of hours today talking to my daughter and son-in-law, and it was very nice. We had a good chat. So I'm looking forward to chatting with all of you, and hope you'll join us on Zoom. So it's time for us to do our guided meditation. And if you'll excuse me just a minute, will you get the Shruti? So I think I wasn't quite as organized as I thought I should be. But we have been doing the Medicine Buddha chant for almost the whole time that we've been in this COVID situation. And I think it's maybe even more relevant now with so many more people, especially in Texas, getting the virus, and so many more people really needing some healing energy. So let's do the Medicine Buddha chant. If you know it, sing along. But if you don't know it, just take it in to your heart. This chant, a very short version, basically means that there really is a healing energy in the universe and we can access it. So it says all of that in Sanskrit, but that's kind of the cliff notes for it. So let's do the Medicine Buddha chant. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaishasha Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Vaishashe Vaishashe Maha Vaishashe Raja Samukate Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaishasha Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Vaishashe Vaishashe Maha Vaishashe Raja Samukate Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaishasha Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Vaishashe Vaishashe Maha Vaishashe Raja Samukate Swaha. So if you would settle into your meditation posture, whatever that might be, sitting on a cushion, in a chair, wherever you feel comfortable. Lately, we've been doing meditations in what I'm going to call Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, in which there are a couple of sentences, something to contemplate, and then a word or two to think as you breathe in and breathe out. You get a bell to signal that there's about to be some instruction, and then a bell that signifies your time to meditate. This particular meditation is all about looking deeply. And the subject that Thich has us looking at deeply is a leaf. But he compares the leaf to ourselves, knowing that all things are. We can learn lessons from the leaves. So let's just begin with a breath or two. Just being aware of where in your body you feel your breath. And then let your attention, as much as possible, rest in that place. In your chest, in your abdomen. Just let that be your anchor. Aware of myself picking up an autumn leaf, I breathe in, touching the wonderful interdependent nature of that leaf, I breathe out. Picking up leaf, independent nature. Picking up leaf, independent nature. Picking up leaf, interdependent nature. Aware of myself, alive here and now, I breathe in, touching the wonderful interdependent nature of life in me and around me, I breathe out. Alive here now, interdependent life in and around me. Alive here now, interdependent life in and around me. Aware of the leaf returning to the earth and arising as a new leaf, I breathe in, seeing the leaf in 10,000 different forms of birth and death. I breathe out. Leaf to earth, earth to leaf. 10,000 different forms. Leaf to earth, earth to leaf. 10,000 different forms. Aware of myself as a part of the wonderful interdependent existence, I breathe in, seeing that I become manifest under many different forms, I breathe out. Part of wonderful interdependent existence, many different forms. Part of wonderful interdependent existence, many different forms. Seeing that the leaf is not really born, does not really die, but only appears to be born and die, I breathe in. Seeing that I do not really pass through birth and death, but only appear to, I breathe out. Leaf only appears to be born and to die. I only appear to be born and to die. Leaf only appears to be born and to die. I only appear to be born and to die. Seeing that the leaf has a nirmanakaya and functions everywhere, I breathe in. Seeing that I have a nirmanakaya and function everywhere, I breathe out. Leaf functions everywhere. I function everywhere. Leaf functions everywhere. I function everywhere. Seeing that the leaf has accomplished its work from beginningless time, I breathe in. Seeing that I have accomplished my work from beginningless time, I breathe out. Leaf's work beginningless, my work beginningless. Leaf's work beginningless, my work beginningless. Seeing that the leaf is already what it wants to become, I breathe in. Seeing that I am already what I want to become, I breathe out. Leaf already is, I already am. Leaf already is, I already am. Seeing that the leaf can call up all its transformations from beginningless time, I breathe in. Seeing that I can call up all my transformations from beginningless time, I breathe out. Leaf's beginningless transformation, my beginningless transformation. Leaf's beginningless transformation, my beginningless transformation. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace. Brahma Vihara Maitri. Brahma Vihara Maitri. Brahma Vihara Karuna. Brahma Vihara Brahma Vihara Mudita. Brahma Mudita. Brahma Vihara Upeksha. Brahma Vihara. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. 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 Thank you. It always takes me a little while to get back in the mood to talk after a meditation. So, following our usual program, I will read our refuge chants to the three jewels. And I just invite you to listen. And after each one, we will bow in honor of and tribute to that part of that jewel in the three jewels. We take refuge in the awakening heart of infinite light, that which shows us the way in this life. We take refuge in the awakening path of infinite light, the way of understanding and of love. We take refuge in the awakening community of infinite light, those who live in harmony and awareness. So our theme for this month is peacefully together. And last week I talked a little bit about, I used Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Peace is Every Step, and talked about how we can potentially incorporate that view, that way of being, emphasizing it is a way of being. The doing can arise out of the being, but it is our intention to be peaceful that makes it possible for us to do peace. So I know Myles is going to offer us a slightly different view, but still helping us to recognize and kind of incorporate how we can live peacefully, even in a time of chaos. So I welcome Myles. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Bobby, as well as that wonderful guided meditation. One of the things I really like about Thich Nhat Hanh is the way he addresses real life topics in a very no nonsense sort of way, and touching on things like mortality isn't something we always do, especially in American culture, but it need not be something to be afraid of. And I enjoy the way that cycling becomes a part of some of his regular meditations. So thank you for that. So the theme for this month, as Bobby said, is being peacefully together, which is once again a timely topic in today's world. And I was thinking about how to best address a snapshot of this topic in about a half an hour's time. I wondered if it would be better to approach it from an interpersonal relationship perspective or from a personal integration perspective. And what I ultimately realized was that it's impossible to parse these two vantage points. If there are parts of ourselves that we're uncomfortable with, we tend to react strongly when we see these qualities reflected back at us through the behaviors of others. More generally speaking, if we are not peacefully together within ourselves, we will struggle to make peace with those in our family, our tribe, and the world at large. Since technology hasn't figured out any explicit techniques for mind control yet. we don't really have a choice but to start within ourselves. In several of his books, Thich Nhat Hanh often likens our consciousness to a garden in which we might find a number of mental formations in bloom at any given time. If you're not familiar with the term mental formations, it includes feeling states like compassion, mindfulness, anger, joy, fear, love, grief, and so on and so forth, which we all experience at different times as they arise and subside within us. As with a real-life garden, the specific flowers in bloom are always in flux, depending upon the conditions present in the garden. How much sun there might be, how much water there is, the temperature, things like that. And this analogy holds true for the equivalent kinds of conditions that give rise to our emotional experiences. But beneath the surface of what we might see at any given time, there's seeds of even more mental formations: despair, discrimination, rage, sorrow, jealousy. It can be scary to watch the seeds of intense mental formations like rage grow and bloom within ourselves. But the point I want to make from this talk today is really that whether or not any of these feeling states have bloomed recently, we all have these seeds within us. We all have the capacity to experience these emotions when certain conditions line up just so. And by acknowledging that we all have the potential to experience these states, suddenly the playing field becomes a bit more level. As Thich Nhat Hanh puts it, when conditions are sufficient, things manifest. Very no-nonsense way to make this point. So we need not be afraid that the occasional appearance of any one of these mental formations somehow makes us bad, dangerous, or defective. It only makes us human. And there need not be any judgment attached to that. Let's take a moment to consider the conditions that we live in which our feeling states manifest. I've heard culture described as the things you know so well that you don't know that you know them. And a real neutral example of this is if you've never left the country, you may simply know that people drive on the right side of the road. It may never occur to you that there's a system that does things any differently until you get exposed to something different and realize, in some places, people drive on the left side of the road. And in other parts of the world, people drive all over the road. For better or for worse, one of the pieces of our culture we live in today, is an undercurrent of violence at its core. It makes sense when you pause to consider that our modern day society was largely founded on conquest, oppression, and the exploitation of natural resources. We need not try to deny or shy away from that reality, that history. But we do need to consider what kind of energy we want to contribute to the collective construction of our future together. These cultural seeds of violence become readily apparent when you look at our everyday language. And before I start to seem like too much of a snowflake for those of you who might not know me so well, we must not forget that our language shapes our thinking, which in turn shapes the way we feel, which in turn, once again, shapes the way we act. in an abbreviated sense, as we think, so we become. In everyday language, we talk about fighting discrimination, fighting racism, fighting mental illness, fighting cancer. In fact, there's a large nonprofit you might be familiar with called F Cancer. The mission is very well intentioned, but the motto is beating cancer is only possible when we come together and fight. This kind of language really begs the question, well, who or what are we fighting? If you have cancer, there is cancer inside you. And yet, strangely enough, most people with cancer don't seem to like it when I tell them to go F themselves. I wonder why. If this strong language, this idea of taking up arms against negative constructs, helps motivate you to take positive action, that's wonderful. We need more people making proactive moves for a better future. But if you're anything like me, you might find this language troubling. As we've already established, we all already have seeds of discrimination, prejudice, and depression inside us. This combative perspective can set us up to fear, fight, or even hate those parts of ourselves. And as I talked about earlier, it also primes us to react or attack these mental formations when we see them in others, which ultimately perpetuates conflict instead of opening up a constructive conversation. These strong emotions may not be comfortable, but we cannot forget that their mere existence cannot hurt us. Additionally, they serve a secondary purpose. As Rumi phrased it so succinctly, these pains you feel are messengers. Listen to them. One of the beautiful things about having this complex human body-mind experience is that we're not helpless bystanders watching a scene play out in front of us. We retain the power to choose what we do next when we notice these mental constructs arising. We also retain the power to choose how we take our next action, which areas of our internal garden we water, which weeds we pull, which seedlings we protect and nurture as they grow. When we notice an intense mental formation has arisen, like Rumi says, we have just received an important message. Our internal garden is in need of tending. If we ignore this message, the brambles and weeds can run rampant, choking out all our beautiful flowers. But as we don our gloves and prepare to work in our gardening space, we should also be aware of the attitude we bring to this landscaping process. Instead of angrily digging and tearing, what if we could learn to weed our gardens with love? Perhaps even thanking the weeds for the place that they held, the purpose that they served, and then mindfully removing them from our gardens, or simply holding off on watering them in the future. And this way, we can avoid perpetuating the out-of-control growth of our weeds, rage, jealousy, despair, without also feeding our own anger or self-hatred in the process. I think the underlying fear is that being gentle with ourselves through this process might mean rolling over and letting these mental formations run wild. allowing our discrimination, our depression to take over. But I've never seen this as an either-or dichotomy. And I've never seen self-loathing act as an effective tool for positive change. Fortunately, we do have an alternative. Anytime and anywhere, we can invite the energy of mindful, non-judgmental self-compassion to counterbalance our emotional discomfort. It sounds very nice, but what might this look like in real life? Well, as we walk through our ever-evolving internal garden of mental formations, sooner or later, conditions will become sufficient to give birth to a thicket of brambles. It might be the seeds of anger manifesting as a grudge against a certain family member. Perhaps it arrives as a pang of jealousy about someone else's finances, looks, success. It could be the realization that we hold a negative stereotype against a certain group of people. Ideas like cops are crooked, lawyers are sleazy, Trump supporters are racist. When we recognize these types of mental formations in ourselves, we need not be afraid. We need not look away. In fact, if we avert our eyes and pretend they do not exist, we would effectively be allowing them to proliferate unattended. So when the time is right, the bravest thing we can do is to sit quietly and look deeply at these wounded parts of ourselves. Because at the end of the day, that's what these feelings are. Manifestations of our own pain, our own fear, our own suffering. Thich Nhat Hanh instead invites us to cradle all forms of suffering like a baby. In his book, No Mud, No Lotus, he says, a mother taking care of a crying baby will take the child into her arms without suppressing, without judging, without ignoring the crying. Mindfulness is like that mother, recognizing and embracing suffering without judgment. So when caring for our own suffering, we can call upon the energy of mindfulness, pausing for a moment to bring our attention back down to our roots, our feet, our seat, our full-bodied belly breaths. Even with a few breaths taken in mindfulness, we can become expansive enough to act as both mother and child, holding our suffering and our self-soothing in awareness with plenty of room to spare. We are suddenly expansive enough to recognize any secondary judgments that arise as a result of our initial discovery, and to sit with those too. When we open the scope of our attention like this, we realize that we do not have to fall headfirst into the brambles. We do not lose sight of the whole expansive, varied garden for this single small sensation in front of us. And perhaps most importantly, we do not forget that these feelings will pass. By courageously exploring the beliefs that fuel our feelings, we can begin to understand the roots of our own suffering. And when we understand the conditions that allowed that bramble brush to grow, we can transform those conditions so that they no longer support its existence. And perhaps we can even do this with love. And this way, we can prevent its return without ever having to angrily wrestle with its thorns barehanded. This watering, weeding, and pruning project may seem daunting. Fortunately, we need not take this on alone. We can ask a friend, a Sangha member, or even a mental health professional to support us through this process. Better yet, we can recognize this as a lifelong practice in gardening, since our internal environments are always evolving for as long as we are alive. And this idea brings me to an open-ended question to kick off our discussion tonight. In classic nursery rhyme fashion, mindful many of this Sangha, how does your garden grow? I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Bobby. Thank you so much for joining.
Wow, thank you, Myles. That was really wonderful. And yeah, it's always good to look within and see what are we growing, what are we tending in our internal garden. Really good reminder. And and I like the kickoff to our sharing. That question brings up a lot of thoughts in my mind, so hopefully it kind of gets other people thinking about it so they can share with us. We're going to end this part of our get together with the closing chant. And I'm sure that all of you have by now seen the Zoom link in the chat box. So really, we really would like to see you there. So I hope you will all join us. Before we do go to the sharing, I'm sure that all of you are aware that we follow what we call Dharma sharing guidelines, and those will still be in effect when we share in Zoom, which means that we want to deeply listen to everybody who shares, that we want to keep our share relevant to the topic, and keep our sharing relatively short so that everybody who wants to share will have an opportunity to do that. And also to be mindful and allow time for everybody to have a chance to share, everybody who wants to, before sharing a second or a third time. So just little reminders. It's another way to be sure that we are nourishing those good seeds in our garden, the seeds of kindness and the seeds of respect. Yeah. Okay. Let's hear a couple sounds of the bell, and then we'll do our closing chant. Limitless beings we vow to free, ceaseless afflictions we vow to end, limitless truth doors we vow to open, the deepest paths of awakening we vow to realize. All right, thank you. See you on Zoom, hopefully soon.
So thank you all for joining us. And I wanted to remind everyone that next Sunday we will be joined by monastics from the Magnolia Grove Monastery. And so be sure to be there. It'll be live on YouTube, just as we have been doing each week. And this is a wonderful opportunity for us. And so please, it would be great to have a big showing of our community. And also we'd like to present a gift of Dana to the monks who will be joining us and to the monastery. So we're asking that everyone help contribute to that. You can contribute to that fund by going to dallasmeditationcenter.com/interbeing, or you can also donate the word interbeing to the number 44321. And please do help support our community as well. So we'll see you next week, but right now we'll see you on Zoom very shortly. Have a great day, everyone.